O'clock, and I will call the meeting to order. The chair notes there is a quorum present. Let's do the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 2.0 is additions and revisions to the agenda. Do you guys have anything?
I do not.
Okay, Pat, you're on a streak. 3.0 is correspondence and public comment. Individuals wishing to address the county court may do so at this time and at other times throughout the meeting. Speakers are asked to raise your hand to be recognized by the chair. Give your name and address and limit comments to 3 minutes. You are dialing in on your phone. It is *6 to unmute yourself. If you are here on your computer, it's the lower left-hand side of the Zoom screen. And as a reminder, we are informal here. So as we move through the agenda, if there's an item that you wish to provide feedback on, ask questions about, we welcome that. Any public comment at this point? If not, under correspondence, couple of items. First one up is the Gilliam County Treasurer's Report for July 2023. Includes a revenue expense report, the fund balance summary, and bank account balances. For folks who are interested in seeing all of those, these are part of the county court's packet, which is online. The other one is a grant report coming in from the Honker's Nest, formerly known as Arlington Child Care, regarding their operational support grant for the just completed fiscal year. So if folks want to see that, again, that is on the county court's website. Commissioners, did you look at that particular grant report?
Yeah.
I had some, well, I have some concerns about the lack of numbers in particular in the budget, and I'm wondering if we feel, so we have not, per grant guidelines, we have to receive these reports before we cut the next check, basically the next operational support check. So we've been waiting on this to come in before we would cut Arlington's operational support check for the current fiscal year. I feel like this is incomplete, but I also don't want to stop Arlington Child Care from being able to function in the interim. Are you guys open to us releasing maybe the first quarter of the payments while we kind of work with them to get this?
I had some trouble with the report and some of what they were unable to get.
Yeah, I also have just some concerns about making sure that like their separation of duties is appropriate, their financial controls are appropriate based on some of the things that was in the narrative. So
yeah, the narrative was a little troubling in a couple of spots, I thought.
Yeah. So, but I didn't want to overstep by withholding part of the payment. So I wanted to make sure that you guys were comfortable with us sending the first quarter and then working with Kelsey and the board to kind of tidy this up and get better financials sort of dialed in. Okay. And have them submit a amended report back to us. And then based on this as well,
so how much would you be sending them?
So I think the total grant award was 200,000.
So it would be 50,000 a quarter. Okay.
So it'd be 50.
Because am I looking at the right one? Because it says 95.
This is for last year's.
Oh, this is last year's. Okay.
Yeah, which they have their grant year.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
They have it wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you guys comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think that as long as we don't give them all, then we get things straightened up.
Yeah, I also just want to double check and see where they are as far as staffing and a few other things. We're going to do that with Connor as well, because both aimed pretty high, and so we just want to check in and see where they are on staffing and things like that, and whether they think they'll need the actual full amount.
How do you know how they are for capacity now?
So our understanding, we asked for an update on enrollment Off the top of my head, I think they have 2 babies, or infants, 0 to 2, 5 preschoolers age, and 7 school age kids. Keeping in mind, I'm not sure on the preschool side because preschool is now under the Arlington School District. And so I don't know if those are kiddos that are going to preschool at the school during the day, and then their parents are utilizing the Hunker's Nest for wraparound care. So, before school, and then after school, but before parents are off from work. And then obviously the school age kids would just be there on after school, before school, and then Fridays and other days when school's out of session.
So they're not at capacity, obviously.
So I would say, like, after school, they probably are near capacity. During the day, they would probably have capacity for littles who aren't in preschool or school. But we can dial into that a little bit more with them as well, and kind of figure out, it may be that some of the parents who have preschoolers maybe are opting to send them to the Hunker's Nest rather than the preschool program. I'm not sure on that. We can get you more information. Okay, moving on, 4.0 is the consent agenda. Any questions on this one?
I didn't have any.
Do we have a motion?
Sure.
I moved to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of consider approval of August 16th, 2023 regular meeting minutes, consider approval of August 16th, 2023 executive session minutes, consider approval of September bills pending review, consider approval of amendment number 1 to IGA number 180008 with Oregon Health Authority. Consider appointment of DaiLene Wilson and Marcee Manning to the Gilliam County Local Public Safety Coordinating Council, or LPSCC. Consider appointment of 2023 Board of Property Tax Appeals, BOPTA, Chairman's Board, and non-office holding pool. That's a mouthful. All those in favor?
I'm in favor because Leah's on that.
Second. Hold on, let's go back. All those in favor? You guys made a motion, so we're voting now.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I was like, wait a second, nobody was voting there. Okay, moving right
So
along.
celebrating that I was on that, so.
Yeah, happy days. I have never had the pleasure, so I'm happy you guys are raising your hands for that.
I'm just glad that I can do the training online and don't have to go somewhere.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Okay, 5.1 is Community Counseling Solutions update with Kimberly Lindsay. Come on up.
Morning. Thank you, DaiLene.
Who gets the award for the best dressed? It's very nice.
That's pretty much every day.
It'd be nice too, though.
Can't, all black, you can't go wrong. Good morning.
Good morning.
I I saw this familiar face at the rodeo in Hefner a few weeks ago, and I'm so used to seeing Commissioner Shannon here, in this backdrop, or maybe in Arlington, and this official was out in front of me, and I looked at him and I thought, my God, I know that guy. I know that guy, but where do I know him from? And I think that completely different context, I would have just known right away. So thankfully he didn't flip me off after I was staring at him, and he waved, and I thought, oh, okay, I know who it is. So it was nice to see you and Hefner, and I didn't know that you did that.
Was he being tossed in the air by a large animal when you saw him?
No, he was not right then. I did pay much more attention though to what he was doing. Right then, I think you were setting, the flag for the barrel pattern, yeah, getting the timer set up. Anyway, so it's kind of neat. Okay. Couple of handouts this morning and then some updates. How was the fair? I heard discussion on that. Successful?
It was good.
The auction, did you?
We did well at
a
the
good
auction, I
year at
think
the
the kids did.
I haven't heard the dollars yet for Morrow County, but it sure felt good. And I know Umatilla County had another record-breaking year.
Toxic what I read.
Yeah, it was a lot.
How many steers did they do along? It was like some amount, it was
They had
large.
like 70, but yeah, and Morrow County this year had almost 50. So compared to Umatilla County, that's incredible. The Morrow County steer prices were really high last year, and I think that there were some kids who jumped ship from lambs and pigs and went over to steers. But yeah, Umatilla County had
Little
a
business
lot of
people,
steers.
too.
Yeah, yes, they are. Yes, they are.
I know we had 14, I think, steers, and we're like, oh my God, 14 steers, so.
That's a lot. There was one year that Morrow County had about 12 or 13 steers. That was maybe not very long ago, 6 or 7 years ago. So anyways, they've rebounded.
Yeah.
Okay, so first document, I give you this, sometimes it's every time I'm here or we miss because it's a quarterly document. And this is for the quarter ending June 30th. It's a customer satisfaction survey that we do. Is it all right if I move the owl back just a little bit? They can see my pimples on screen. I don't have many, but anyways, so we do this every quarter, ended June 30th. This is a customer satisfaction survey that is given out to everybody who has an appointment within CCS for a behavioral health service in the last 2 weeks of the quarter. It's voluntary, so you can see what the results are for the agency and for Gilliam County, and there was no one that participated. So nothing to show, unfortunately. And then you have Grant and Umatilla and Morrow and Wheeler. So I share the good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, you know, there's really like no good or no bad. I didn't, well, I should be receiving services, but I'm not. I don't know why nobody participated from Gilliam County. They're all asked. If they have an appointment in the last 2 weeks, everybody is asked, but again, it's voluntary, so. It's tempting to into it. Yeah, I mean, it's. Generally, I think if people are really upset, they'll participate, but you know, that's not something that you wanna take to the bank, so to speak. So, yeah. Hopefully there'll be more participation next quarter. The next document is it's an annual report. It's also a 4-year report for our Zero Suicide Initiative. I try to talk about this each time I'm here. Zero suicide is not a treatment modality. It is, though, an agency-wide best practice with things that you can do at all levels to reduce the likelihood of suicide. So again, suicide is preventable. 0 maybe aspirational, but we can't say that 1 suicide is okay. So this report, I'm really proud of it. We asked OHSU to compile it, to come in, do an outside look of our organization, compare us to others nationally, and compare us to ourselves based upon where we started. I won't go through every page with you. I just would draw your attention to the second page. It shows where we were in 2019. That is the lightest blue line. This is a scale of 1 to 5, and where we are today at 2023 with the darkest blue line. So, you know, I don't know that we'll ever get all 5s. There's within each of the 7 elements, there's probably there's anywhere from 5 to 7 sub-elements. So almost 50 indicators. But we've made a lot of improvement. Still have room for additional improvement. The third page, you can see what the rate of change has been. With the first year being the most significant, but that hopefully, you know, wouldn't be a surprise when you implement a new initiative. The first year of having it be active, you should see some significant changes. So it's unlikely that we're going to see an 83% improvement. Well, we really don't have that much room for improvement, right? When you're at 4, and the highest that you can get is a 5. And if it's my kids, can you answer it and tell them whatever you think you should say as a parent? Darn it. It's always nice to have somebody else, some other mom chime in and say, no. No, you can't do that. Yeah. It is helpful with school back in session, so, yeah. There's other good bedtime reading. There's, again, opportunity for growth here. But we have done really well. We continue to train a lot of people in the community around QPR, mental health first aid. QPR is question, persuade, refer. Work with schools to provide debriefings for often first responders when there's been a significant incident, to reduce the likelihood of their trauma. Well, they're going to have some trauma, but to reduce that. Any questions on that? Concerns? Okay.
It's always good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so this last summer, just 3 weeks ago, there was a summer program that CCS put on here in Condon that was very successful. I feel it was. So shout out to Lisa Helms, to Katie Hands, to DaiLene, to Gilliam County, because you gave us 3 teams to use, to Brian Schimmel of the school district for the use of the school. There was about 23 to 25 participants every day. That's what the average was. And not always the same kids. They started in the morning and they did some skills training. Sometimes they would be different activities. The teens would take them down to the library, which I would like to be at the library all day. But went down to the library, participated with the Early Learning Center for the summer lunch program. So free lunch every day, and then swimming at the pool, great partnership with that. So I thought it was a smashing success. Eddie did an amazing job with the program. And just, yeah, shout outs to everyone. And if there was any questions on it, we'd like to be able to continue it next year. The public health program gave us 5,000, and then we had about 15 or 20,000, 15,000 or so that we contributed. And again, other entities gave us other forms of in-kind support. So it was good. Any questions, concerns? Maybe you've had other programs here talking about what a great success it was, but
Well, we have several staff members whose kiddos were a part of it, so I know it was a huge help for parents and having a safe place for kids to go.
good.
So
Okay.
we would love to see you continue. And we would love to continue to provide you through our summer work experience program to be able to support it too.
Great. Well, Katie and Eddie and Lisa came to us with this. I hope we can. They came to us with this idea back in, I don't know, maybe it was last fall, but for sure, January, February, March, we were talking about it, and it was great.
Yeah.
So kudos to them for the cool idea and following up with it, and 23 to 25 kids, that's
It's very impactful.
impactful and
Yeah.
busy. And I felt tired just reading the report that they were giving. So it's great. Okay, I think that I can't remember if I talked about this last time I was here. I don't know. We purchased, or in the process of purchasing, the property over here on Main Street next to the DHS building, 105. Jay LaRue's office,
Oh.
yes. We're just out of space. We love our partnership at the South Gilliam Health Center, but we need more space, and so we will be converting that into 3 offices, I think. Does need some work on it, so we won't be moving in right away. I think that we close on it the middle of this month. But eventually you'll see CCS signs out there and some additional activity. So
It'd be great to have a
great.
building built on Main Street.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
Yep, you're welcome. Doing our part.
Be more visible too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it will be. We'll have our some addictions team members there. So a peer, again, a peer is somebody who's been there, done that, has the lived life experience with addictions. And then I also think we're gonna have the certified alcohol and drug counselor there, and I'm not sure about the 3rd office. More space is nice. We will be advertising for mobile crisis. I've been mentioning this. The state requires that we have 2 people on call for the 24/7 mobile crisis response. So we will be adding more people to the Gilliam Wheeler team. We have to have that in place by December 31st, so soon. I think I said that last time too. We just had a few hiccups, but soon we will be advertising for an additional position. You know, the funding the state didn't completely fund it. The funding is one issue. I'm really more concerned about firing. We haven't fired anyone in Gilliam or Wheeler. Finding an additional several additional employees. It's not just one person to do it over the whole week, 24/7. We're talking about several different personnel. So once again, if you know anyone, that plus the Arlington counselor position is still vacant. The gal that left the position, she does still continue to provide remote services to anybody that wants that. She does live in California. It would be best to have a person that's on site. So again, we are advertising for that, but I've not filled that.
CDAC, what do you call it?
CADC. No, it's not being advertised for an addictions primary. It's,
I'm going through that
Just-
training is what I'm asking.
well, good. Do you want a job?
Okay.
Because we've been hiring.
Not full time, but I've done the group counseling, basic, and the ASAP.
Good for you. Well, if you need practicum hours, let us know, because you will need practicum hours in addition to get the licensure, and so might be mean, you could do those in Gilliam County. It might be more comfortable for you to do them in Boardman, given where you live and fewer people that you know, I bet you know everyone, but anyways, lots of, yes. Love to do that. And then we still have Mary Helen's position open. She did decide to retire. I am hopeful that when she gets back from her big hike in Spain, that she'll get bored and come back and work for us a little bit, but anyways, I'm very
Sometimes
excited.
Retired people don't want to stay retired.
Yeah,
very
they
long,
don't, you
so.
know, they do it for a while and then they're like, well, can I come work 10 or 20 hours a week? We really have had quite a few employees that have retired and came back, so fingers crossed. And then last but not least, a really cool announcement for us is that we were selected as one of Oregon's 100 best nonprofits to work for this last year. So there'll be a bigger splash that comes out in the Oregon Business Magazine and different things that they send out and promote, but I can let people know that we made the list. So they break it out by 33 small nonprofits, 33 medium, and 33 large. The size category is number of employees. So 0 to 49 employees is small, 50 to 100 is medium, and 100 or more is large. So we fit into the large category. There's 33 entities that get selected from each category. We made it, so that was great. We made it back in, I think, like 2009, 10, and 11, but we haven't made it for the last 11 years.
Congratulations, that's
very much.
wonderful.
Yeah, very excited about that. It was great.
Maybe that will help with some of the recruitment.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Nice place to work.
Yeah, I'm biased. You know, we do have our wards, but it's I have felt it's been decent to good, and it's nice that the employees are feeling that way as well. It's a pretty rigorous survey. I don't know, 100 questions, all voluntary. You can't mandate employees participate. You have to have a certain percentage of your workforce participate, and yeah, it's good.
Great,
Survey.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Questions?
That's what I
I
have.
always have my question, have we made any progress in sober living housing?
No, we have not. And I, as I was driving down here, I thought Commissioner Shannon's gonna ask that question. So, we have not. I'm gonna tell Matt that he's gonna come with me to the next meeting because he's the one that I have put in charge of that. And so I'm gonna bring Matt Bergstrom, and I wonder if we won't have that house purchased in Arlington by the next meeting when I tell him that. So that was a good idea.
Okay,
Yeah.
a little pressure.
Well, I'll just make a comment that we were down at County College in June, and mental health was one of the topics. And CCS, in your name in particular, came up as doing a stellar job. So
Oh, wow.
you are recognized by the speakers that we listen to. So good job.
Thank you very much. But that's humbling.
Yeah, we were sitting there and they were like, oh, they're talking about CCS and Kimberly Lindsay. And we're like, oh, yeah.
Disclaimer.
CCS, have they taken over the mental health stuff for Umatilla County completely, or?
Well, as the community mental health program, yes, there's a lot of other private providers in
So
Umatilla
it's like
County.
LifeWorks and some other stuff up there too, right?
Well, LifeWays was the community mental health program, but the commissioners voted to end their contract, and they put it out for RFP, and CCS did choose to respond. The board has to respond, yeah. Yeah, so other private programs that would be like Eastern Oregon Alcoholism Foundation or Eastern Oregon Center for Independent Living or Roundhouse, or yeah, lots of LCSWs and LPCs and a couple psychiatrists that practice and psych nurse practitioners, but for the Medicaid population, we're the designated provider. Yeah.
Well, we have Kimberly here too. I know the last conversation, when she was here, we talked a lot about what Clackamas County was doing with their ballot measure
110, oh yeah.
110.
Mhm.
It looks like, so for context, Clackamas County the commissioners are putting on their questions, basically. They're not actually repealing in Clackamas County, but it's basically like should the legislature and the governor
Mhm.
repeal it. And so after we saw that, I think the feeling, and I just want to check in with the commissioners, is that rather than, because Gilliam County heavily voted against it anyway, so I don't think it's really a question of where our
Their
electorate
constituents,
is on it. And so that it would, rather than spend county money to put it back on a ballot when our voters have already said no, that we would just independently either pass a resolution or a proclamation that we could then just send to our own legislators, asking for them to take another look at it. So I know several counties have been doing that, and I have their drafts, and so
Yeah, let's put that together.
okay. And if you don't mind, Kimberly, I may reach out if there's anecdotally, like what you're seeing. I think it'd be helpful to be able to kind of reference like
Data.
what you guys are seeing in terms of people seeking treatment and those kinds of things.
Very
since
few people.
That's helpful to understand that.
Yeah, they thought that people would be, breaking down the
Oh,
doors
just to get there.
because treatment was free.
They
And
don't
that's not
understand,
happening.
Kimberly, they don't understand.
Yeah, I know, I am so pleased that you're gonna do that, and my ask is, if you wouldn't mind sending it to me, I would like to challenge the other counties that we work with to do the same. I'd like to send Grant and Wheeler and Morrow and
that'd be great.
Umatilla the document and say, this is what Gilliam County is doing, could I challenge you to sign on and draft your own letter, and I think they would. I mean, not one of those counties voted to support it. And it would make it so much easier for me if everybody did do it, because then I could say all of the commissioners that I work with would like to see this overturned or significant changes made to it. Yeah, I mean, you're still gonna get the tax. You're gonna get the tax, right? I mean, you can repeal the tax or not, but I think that the sticking point is the decriminalization.
Yep.
That's what we want to change. So my vote is, I don't know, I'm somewhere between a liberal Republican and a conservative Democrat. I guess we could do away with the tax, but my vote would be actually that the tax stays. Maybe it's a little bit less. It's a cigarette tax, so it's not taxing everybody, and I don't mean to offend cigarette smokers here, but keep the treatment free. Just mandate it for the population that that needs it. And I know I've said this 100 times before, but I don't give up chocolate because it's the right thing to do. I give it up because I don't want diabetes. I mean, actually, and I don't completely give it up, but you know what I mean? Like, I rarely stop doing things that if I'm doing something that makes me feel good, that's unhealthy, I rarely do it just because. I usually do it because I want to avoid a consequence. That's just human nature. So I don't know why we
might have
think.
said something about this in the last one, but I've been, doing some volunteer work in a treatment center in Hermiston, and there are gentlemen in there that are only in there because they're afraid they're gonna die of fentanyl. If they could continue to use, stay high and do what they were doing without that fear, they would do it. But that's the driving force, is they've had a buddy died right next to them on the street.
Yeah. So significant. That's crazy.
So-
It's completely crazy what Oregon has done. I mean, and it's like we're a little petri dish. Yeah, and the world is watching. We're getting written up in all kinds of articles, and that we're not doing anything, because so far the data isn't showing support for this little experiment. And the virus is growing, right? We're watching it grow in front of us, and it's just completely,
Yeah, it goes back to no morgue space in Clackamas County and Multnomah County. I mean, no place to put a dead body.
yeah, that's sad. Sobering.
So I'll work on putting together a draft, and then maybe Kimberly, I'll share that with you prior, just to see if there's some anecdotal stuff and make sure that we have any facts that I put in there that they ring true. And then we'll get it scheduled to come back for the court to actually sign off and vote on it.
Okay. Do you mind, well, this is just my 2 cents. And I think that this could be a little political. I hear from legislators on the west side, those that I've talked to about this, because I try to talk about it every time I can, that they feel that there'd be more support if the decriminalization went away, but the services remained the same, the service level remained the same. So I don't know what you all think about that, but maybe something to think about. If I'll just put that out there, if you wanted to reference something like that in your letter. But I get that that gets to talking about a tax that may not be popular, so I'll just leave that there.
I mean, my feeling is if you're gonna mandate it, I mean,
Get rid of it.
yeah, it is to pay. Like, part of the cost to society to not make sure that those folks who need treatment are getting into treatment is so much more than the tax that is supporting getting them into treatment. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
I
It's
completely
like,
agree.
Mandated treatment doesn't have very high percentage of success.
Right? It's just a little bit more, which is about 200% more. It's like, so if you have 10% versus 20%, but how do you put a dollar amount on the
10%.
additional 10%, you know, that are not in jail? I mean, I completely agree. I couldn't argue that ever, that mandated treatment doesn't have really high rates of success, but it does have success, you know, and then nobody is getting into treatment. So, and some other pieces that came with Measure 110 for the services are around low barrier. So the housing is a component of that. And I do want the decriminalization to go away, but I do think that the housing is a real issue for people. I mean, if I were out on the street, I mean, Gilliam County is different because there's friends, but like Umatilla County, I don't know, if it was 2 a.m. and I'm completely miserable, if I were to take something that would make the next 4 hours more miserable because I would be knocked out and not cold, I don't know. I just think that those are really hard questions, and I don't want to get into a lot of handouts, but I think some short-term assistance to give some opportunities a few times is helpful. That's it. I know this is super political, so
It's all right.
really sorry. I'm a social worker, remember that. All right,
Other
Thank you.
questions? Yeah, absolutely. Other questions or comments for Kimberly?
No. Thank you.
Thank you as
thank you.
always.
Matt will
So-
be here next time.
So great. Yeah, we'll be looking forward to it.
Be waiting, be waiting. for him.
You can break news here.
All right. Have a good day.
You
Happy
too.
Wednesday.
Safe travels back. All right, guys, moving on to 6.1 is consider approval of resolution number R 2023-15, adopting a use of county credit card policy. So we are in the process, Miranda and I primarily, but also DaiLene and occasionally Rachel, of going through all of the existing policies and also identifying areas where we maybe don't have policies and need them, and updating as needed. So the one that you have before you is an update of an existing policy, the use of county credit card policy. Last time it was passed was January of 2020, so a couple of years. We have since obviously had a significant staffing change with Rachel coming on board and moving the financials downstairs. And so that's what started us digging into it, was getting the staffing changed around on who's responsible for what. But then since we had it opened anyways, I took the liberty of making things a little bit more concise and clarifying things that have come up in the past that we had to make judgment calls on. So do you guys have questions or things you want to
Well,
talk?
I have a number of things I want to touch on.
Okay,
The approver
yes.
is so open-ended. How do you become an approver? This doesn't define what an approver even is, really, and other than, I mean, who is it that all of a sudden is an approver?
So in general, that has been the department head, or like in the case of, in most cases, it would be the elected official that's overseeing the department. We left a little bit of leeway for the possibility that, because Dewey's always sort of the odd one.
Well,
In that group?
I think he's kind of the odd one all the way through.
Yeah, but by and large, the approver would be the elected official that's overseeing that particular department. So you'd be in charge of the road and weed, Leah would take hers, I have mine, each of the electeds have their own, would be responsible for the.
Okay, I got some concerns over the $500 limit because, and having to get it pre-approved. When a motel room for 2 nights could be $500, and I mean, especially in the road department with parts, Jimmy and Christie.
So one of the things that's come up before, the $500 actually, this is actually, I think, an improvement, because before the policy was everything had to be pre-approved. So we were trying to figure out what a limit would be, and so this policy is actually giving more leeway for employees to make purchases without pre-approval. But one of the ways that we've sort of worked around this with the electeds is by saying that this pre-approval doesn't necessarily have to come in the form of an actual form. It can be a verbal. So
we did the AFC conferences, it was $1,300.
right.
With 2 extra meetings.
Because, and in particular, Gary had a lot of concerns because his deputies are out at all hours. So do they have to get pre-approval for meals while they're dropping somebody off at Norcor? And so basically, I think the reason this is worded the way it is that electeds, which are most of the approvers, can say during a staff meeting, hey, anybody that wants to sign up for the sheriff's office or the sheriff's conference, feel free. And that would be considered a pre-approval. So the idea is not to make everything have a paper attached to it, but just making sure that employees are actually checking in with their supervisor before they make a major purchase. So you could, Pat, if you're concerned about pre-approving things for the road department, you could just have an arrangement between you and Dewey on, here are the things that I would like you to come to me if you're going to be purchasing, and everything else is pre-approved. So you can do that verbally.
Yeah, I think since I don't ask people and signed this when we were elected and got our credit card, I've never seen it before.
Nope.
And when it went out the packet, it didn't include the old one, so we couldn't compare the old one to the new one to see where we're at. So I was in there this morning trying to
Figure out the differences.
sort of some of where this is and where it came from. From a personal side, when you get to the purchase without an original itemized receipt, because I've had this issue. And had Miranda try to chase down a receipt for me that I left on the table in a restaurant in Ontario. and had no idea whether she got it or not until the day and a half after, which she did not, and she did an incomplete receipt form, which I didn't know we had.
Mhm. Sounds
And
like we
then
need
this
to get
also
you trained on the
says,
policy.
and reimburse the county for the purchase. So why would an employee do an, lost receipt if they're just gonna have to reimburse them anyway? But I didn't reimburse for that, and I think it was a legitimate purchase, even though I didn't have an itemized.
So we, that form goes to me. And in most cases, if it's like, say, the first time that an employee's done it,
Yeah, I had an issue.
we
with the
just,
weed
I
department,
sign it and they don't reimburse.
too.
If it's an employee who is habitual, then we start requiring them to actually pick it up because my experience has been they only have to reimburse the county once before they remember their receipts when they're leaving the
I
restaurant.
just wanna make sure we get this communicated well throughout. Those
Absolutely.
using the card, and I don't think it has been. I know we had problems with the weed department, I think at the conference they went to last year, and for Vallis, where they had some missing meal receipts, and, yeah.
So maybe, Miranda for the next staff meeting. So Miranda does an HR training, during each of the staff meetings. There's one coming up at the end of the month. So assuming this moves forward before the staff meeting, then maybe Miranda, this could be your next thing that you train staff
Yeah,
on.
as soon as it's in place, I wanna make sure we do a staff meeting with the road department and the weed department too. Cause they won't come to this one.
Yeah, they're usually out and about when we have staff meetings, so.
And then my other concern is county credit cards carry a monthly limit of $3,000, which, I mean, I can do the same thing with Dewey, but has to be approved by the approver and the county judge. Why would we do that if we have siloed reporting for our departments?
So in general, we have done this so that there's some, I think part of the concern is making sure that we are not, if the court would like to do that, because we are regularly purchasing things and understand procurement law. But part of the reason we have some of these restrictions in place, there's another reference in here, something about if it would exceed 10,000 over a fiscal year. The reason for that is that it's triggering procurement levels that we need to make sure internally that we are not. What I don't want is an elected official who's not normally watching our procurement process, authorizing an employee to spend, say, $11,000, and then we violated procurement rules internally unknowingly because I don't have visibility on what's being purchased.
So this becomes problematic just because of the quorum, in my opinion. If you're the one that's gonna approve for the road department and don't agree with something I've approved, how do we deal with that and get that done?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if we completely disagreed on something, we would probably have to take it to the court. But in general, I mean,
I just think it's, I mean, for the 3 court members, they're all equal. Now we divided department responsibilities up. This should fall under that department head. What do you think?
Well, I think we should always have a responsibility to, and sometimes just having one more person look at it and go, yes, no, why does that person need a credit card with a $10,000 limit?
I mean, I think it really gets down to primarily road department issues. But
I mean, how many times do they buy large items? with a
often
credit
going
card?
to buy stuff with a monthly limit of over $3,000.
Okay.
They are often going to have purchases, or I shouldn't say often, there could be times when they do over $10,000 in a year on an open credit card. And that's not something I've watched for, because I've not seen this before,
mhm.
but it could sure happen and should need to happen. And that one is only to be authorized
Like
by the
for-
county judge,
Like, for instance,
who's not over that department.
I mean, so the reason for that, guys, honestly, is that in general, the way we've worked on our financial controls is that I'm the one that's signing off on purchases on AP, right? So every purchase is coming through Rachel, it comes through me. And so part of understanding these pre-approvals is if I don't have visibility that a credit card limit has gone up and I see a major purchase go through, I don't know if that's actually been approved or not. So part of the reason we're doing this is internal controls. I don't necessarily want employees running around with $10,000 limits without having two eyes on it. So I'd be comfortable if we decide it has to be a member of the court in addition to the
Well, I think
approver that
that's what I
signs
think
off.
it needs to be.
I'm okay with
Yeah,
that,
that's
but-
absolutely what I think it needs to be.
but I don't want, I'm, because we have responsibility for making sure we're in compliance on procurement.
Yep.
A lot of our other electeds don't have to worry about that, because if they want to purchase something, they come ask, what's the process? So I just want to make sure there's enough control in here that we who will be held accountable,
Exactly. Yeah,
if
exactly.
there's a
That's-
purchase
that's
that goes
my-
through that
that's my point,
shouldn't.
is-
Okay, so are we saying that we would like, under the monthly limits, so page 3, is this the only place that's come up,
Yeah, it's gonna be in the A and B.
is substituting the county judge for a member of the county court?
Yeah,
Okay, I can live with that. I just don't want,
well, and it's gonna be you a lot of the time. I mean,
I'm in the building, so
Yeah,
most of the time
but-
it's
but
gonna
if
come
you
to
got
me.
questions, I wanna be in that loop. If you didn't know whether Dewey and I had talked or not, that we somehow, and how do you do that without a quorum? Problem.
Okay, I can live with that. So we will. Do you want, did you have anything else?
No, I
Before
think
then, okay.
that I got a little confused about why we had under audit was gonna be done by the program administrator instead of by the financial director, but it kind of clarifies that in the first part of it, under, program administrator, Gilliam County Finance Director, who generates, so.
Right,
Finds that there and just refers to it instead of the financial director later as the program administrator, so.
right. So basically, that piece is just saying if Rachel sees something that goes through that she is like,
Well, she should be the one. Yeah, she should.
she can flag, she is authorized to flag it for me and say, that's problematic. So, okay. Would you guys, do you want me to bring back a clean copy, or do you want to pass the resolution as amended with those basically striking, the references to county judge on page 3 and substituting a member of the county court?
Well, clarify for me again one time, now the $500 limit was, everything had to be pre-approved before? I don't have the old policy.
Yeah, prior, we did
No.
not,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just pulled out the old policy and it says it can be verbally approved in the old policy. But this policy says approvers are required to pre-approve purchases using the county credit card expense pre-approval form if purchase amount exceeds $500. So I didn't know if that was your intent or not, but I did pull the old policy. Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay, I don't have the old one with me, so.
okay, so is the issue that you would like to see the verbal language back in there?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think the verbal language has to be in there. So we don't have to fill out paperwork and have the approvers run around doing paperwork for United Motel room.
Let me just double check. Okay, I see.
Approvers may-
So it would-
Pre-approve
so-
purchases.
Basically, we'd be talking about in page 2, section 4. Under valid approvers, A, second sentence would say approvers may opt to accept and pre-approve verbal purchase requests at their discretion. And then we would just put a period there. Right now it says for any purchase under 500. So the idea would be that they can verbally approve.
Onto page 3 or 4.
It'd be page 2 under policy.
Page 4.
This way.
Now say that again.
Okay, so under valid approvers. And then A. The second sentence currently reads, approvers may opt to accept and pre-approve verbal purchase requests at their discretion for any purchase under $500. So I think to revert back, I don't have the old policy in front of me, but to revert back to the verbal purchase, it would be approvers may opt. Okay.
Pre-approved verbal purchase at their discretion.
At their discretion.
Yep.
Yeah, so basically it would be eliminating the for any purchase under 500. And in that way they can approve.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go
Can I
ahead.
provide you with that?
Yes,
Okay, so it's not uncommon for organizations to have some sort of limit where there needs to be a written approval for purchase as a control to make sure that purchases above a certain amount have a second set of eyes on them. So in your case, if we did need to purchase $5,000 worth of equipment, you signing off on a form saying you authorize that is the proper internal control to make sure that the government is responsible for spending the money. So if $500 you feel is too aggressive, I would like to suggest we do have some sort of limits that where if we're gonna purchase above a certain amount, if an employee is gonna authorize a purchase for Gilliam County, that purchase is approved by their supervisor.
Well, in Dewey's position, 3,000 might not be enough.
I think 3,000 is the limit for, like, the max limit for everybody, so I don't know, I haven't.
Per
reviewed.
month.
Yes, correct,
Mhm.
so each payment cycle.
Do we think though that Dewey's purchases, I mean, from what I've seen, those are coming in on actual invoice.
Correct.
Most
And not
of it,
coming through his.
sometimes, especially crusher parts, if trying to find crusher parts and stuff, you'll end up with a credit card purchase with not a vendor we use all the time.
And those are on his credit card, or are we talking about you?
Right, well, you wouldn't know, that's yeah, there are times that, not a lot of, but it happens, and then when they're down, it's. What if I'm not available, and, that's pretty limited for a budget that he runs. And
So-
the amount of equipment that he's trying to run and the work he's trying to get done.
So is there an amount?
Well, I would say 3,000. I don't think it is. For the road department, the one-time purchase of $3,000 may not be enough to buy what you need on a road crusher.
So
I mean,
Isn't it-
I would love to, do the verbal is fine, but they have to do the paperwork and it's not like I'm in the building.
So is his credit card limit higher than $3,000 a month?
No. So, no, everybody said, is that 3?
Seems like that.
I'm going back to signing an invoice and trying to remember, and I don't remember exactly, but I do know we've had pressure parts on a credit card before, and I know that a lot of times pressure parts are really expensive.
Okay, so. Sounds like we have one of two directions to go. One is to either remove the phrase for any purchase under 500 altogether, which would just leave the policy saying approvers may opt to accept and pre-approve verbal purchase requests at their discretion. So option A. Option B would be to change the 500 to another amount that the court feels comfortable with. I
How about-
understand what you're saying on the Dewey
How about
side. Okay. Like, I'm comfortable, I just, like, I get what you're saying on the road department side and want to be mindful of that. But we also have like 40 other people running around with credit cards that
I get you,
I want to make sure that we're not totally loosening up the spending.
getting too loose, I get that.
So I can live with 1,000.
So we're gonna do. Okay,
What do you think?
it would be
Leah?
exceeds 1,000 then to the, okay,
So
and then
you're changing 1,000 to which part?
500 to 1,000.
So the sections where it says 500 in A right there would
one?
be changed to 1,000. Or whatever other number that you guys feel comfortable with.
Is, so is there language that can accept the
Road department.
road department? If, you know, I mean, how will we do that?
And you could put in there, except for the road department, which would be $1,000.
Yes, if you would like,
And I'm not so sure, but what the weed department would fall into that too, is expensive chemicals.
okay, so. Would you like, it sounds like we may need to.
I mean,
bring
because
back
we have
cleaning.
drivers with credit cards that are like, I'm not sure we want to charge $1,000 worth of stuff.
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? We
Yeah.
have part-time drivers who are on the road that we don't necessarily want
That have
expending.
credit cards that.
But, so in the case of a driver, and this is just, I went to Monroe, Washington this weekend. How do they fuel up?
Credit card,
Wherever?
yes.
And
How often
I
do
think
they-
most of the
How
time,
often are they not able to get a receipt? That happens to me all the time when the printer isn't working, and especially downtown, half hours in Arlington, and they don't come service it for 2 weeks.
I think it's probably their longer trips when they would have to get fuel. Otherwise, I think
They probably don't ever go on a trip that's over $500 worth of fuel. I mean, I did one this weekend. I mean,
I would
price
highly
of
doubt
fuel
it.
in Washington, it was ridiculous.
I just would feel more comfortable with language that would Maybe.
500.
separate, yeah, those guys. And not just do a blanket. Let everybody go to 1,000.
Okay, so how about,
Now that I've confused.
However you.
no,
however you wanna
the hamster's
wordsmith
working.
that.
The hamster's working. I'm trying to figure out how to bridge the need. So what if Rachel and I go back and explore language, possibly? What about this? Not everybody has a $3,000 limit. We set that when that's on the form.
Issue the card.
What if when we issue the card, also set the limit on pre-approval on that form? So it can range from 500 to 1,000, maybe the court sets what the range is. Maybe that's, I don't know. We got to think about it, I think. So how about we take this back?
Okay.
Bring it back to you. We'll see if we can come up with a compromise option to give us a little bit more flexibility for those departments that are have higher
Needs.
purchases. While also kind of keeping some guardrails for the rest of us.
Okay,
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. To be continued. We will bring that one back.
sorry, but
No, there's no sorry. This is why it's on here. Okay, let's move into 6.2, which is consider award of fiscal year 2023-2024 cycle 3 capital investment grants. DaiLene, why don't you take this one?
All right, so we are on our third cycle for the capital investment grant program. I would say that the court moving to do them on a rolling basis has proved to be really beneficial for those who are looking to utilize the grant. So we have 2 to review today. First up, we have the Condon Arts Council. They're looking for gap funding to purchase the Sweeney Mortuary Building. If you'll look on the application, I was advised early last week that they are revising the amount because the purchase price has changed. So they're only asking for 37,500 instead of the 40,000 on their original application.
Yeah, that was confusing. There's nothing on here that indicates that, I think, except.
It's
for-
on the red words on the front page.
Yeah.
So. And then we have the Oregon Frontier Chamber of Commerce is asking for $330,000 to start the second story housing project on Main Street. And they have 2 projects tapped in to use as kind of the starting projects for this grant fund. And those are listed in there, including the breakdown of how they'll utilize that $330,000. So.
Question.
So first question on the art council. In the narrative, they have a down payment of $47,500. What is their down payment?
It will probably be updated based off that purchase price. Steve, are you on and able to answer that question?
I am. Can you hear me?
We
Yeah.
can.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Yes, when we renegotiated the price of the purchase, and that's what changed the amount that we were asking from the court. But in doing so, for the Sweeneys to kind of come down on the total purchase price, our down payment price, closing price actually went up to $50,000.
Okay, so my question then, Steve, is just where were your funds coming for the difference?
We had those in reserve. So we had some fundraising that we did through our winter Christmas performance. We were able to get some ticket sale money at the door, and our pottery class has been pretty popular. We also have some fund that we've set aside from that. So that's what made up the difference.
Okay, and then my other question was, you're vacating the building up by Sinclair's. Is that a lease?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've been leasing that building now for about 18 months. Yeah, we've got a big lift ahead of us, but we're excited. We've been working with Marcee, the architect, who I think he's been active in Arlington as well. He also did the Elgin Opera House. So we're looking at ways to kind of marry both buildings, the Sweeney building and the Liberty Theater. We're talking about all kinds of exciting stuff as well, with summer opportunities for kids and maybe potentially after school opportunities as well.
Sounds
Okay.
like you guys need to talk to Kimberly Lindsay about their summer program. And
Yeah.
marrying. Other questions on that one?
Not on that one, but on the next one, I have questions.
Okay, Gilliam's here too.
So, it's a lot of money, so I have questions. Main one is, now that you're no longer going to be the director, why would we give $330,000 out to someone we don't know who's gonna be to manage to get this project off the ground?
Great question. Although I've been the director, I've always worked for my board of directors, so they will essentially be the oversight of these projects and programs moving forward. 300,000 is a lot of money, but we could potentially have housing on our main street within the next 12 to 16 months. And substantial housing. The bank building down here on the corner will be
Which one's the bank building?
the building next to the grocery store.
So that's, no Murray's used to be in the bottom of it, apartments on the top.
Yeah,
So when I was looking through this, I couldn't quite understand what is upstairs now. You framed up.
It's framed and ready to go.
Are there apartments up there, more than one?
Yes, 6.
Six.
And then there'll be a master suite. Also within this project, we would hope to complete the downstairs and open that up for retail office.
Sure.
Something pretty significant. Phase 1 that's proposed in this plan for the Barker building, which is the space up above M&A, would be to draw out renderings, architecture, potentially proposal for 4 apartments or 2 condominiums. But, you know, with support of these projects, we would have housing relatively quickly turned around on our main street. BART has all of the materials for this bank building, everything from the flooring to the tiling.
Is he the owner?
Yes.
That Bart Daniels.
So how does it work that,
So there would be a total of 8 to 10. Okay, so just to put things in perspective, Pat, that's $41,000 a unit
Yeah.
that they're asking.
no, I'm not, I'm in favor, believe me, I'm in favor of, especially with this project, it makes so much sense in so many ways. I just, when I see the big numbers,
Also, I'm not going anywhere. I'm fully invested in, you know, the organization, our community, the projects that we have moving forward. The foundation is understanding that they don't want to disrupt the systems that are working. So they're allowing me the freedom to continue to plug in where it makes sense.
so when we started this conversation, there was grants through Main Street, whatever, what's going on with that?
Yeah, so we were successfully awarded 2 Main Street grants this year, one for 200,000 in spray, the other one for 63,000 for the Times Journal building. The application process closes annually. It will reopen again in January.
Well, I think if I remember right, we couldn't make the deadline with what we need to do when we applied last
Weren't
year.
ready.
Yeah.
But if we get these
This-
projects
So,
moving forward, both these buildings, if they wanted, could put in for that pre-application
okay,
to be in the running. For
I just
up
wanted to
to
make sure we weren't.
200,000.
And I'm thinking the flats building, since it's a phase 1 and beginning of phase 2, that timing actually might work really nicely for a next spring kind of application, because hopefully they can get their drawings finished before then and then have a stronger application. So that, no, the idea is still, and then keep in mind, we still have 2 other buildings that aren't even touched in this. So I think,
Yeah.
with Bart's building, it seemed, Kaylin and I talked about this offline, but with him having done so much of the work and already purchased a lot of the stuff, it's probably so far along that I don't know that it makes sense to hold it up in order to wait for the Main Street one, but we've got 2 big projects later that I think will
I
be
didn't
right
realize it
candidates
was,
for that.
I had no idea, 6 apartments up there.
Yeah,
And that's huge.
And a very nice downstairs space. It's beautiful, beautiful.
So my last question is 30,000 for salaries out of the 330. Just justify that for me.
I mean, I will say what I always say when we talk about taking part of the money out for administration for the chamber. I think if you see what the chamber is doing in the communities, it is money well spent, and we spend a lot more money paying our project manager to make sure all of those little things are dotted and crossed when we do a building project. So
So who's gonna receive that?
I believe the chamber will, and whoever they designate, that will help cover their time to make sure that it's successful, to your original point about who's gonna run this with Kaylin Vaughn.
Well, it's a nervous place.
Yeah.
Where do you find that energy?
Well, listen, if I could, there are several people in this community, if I could clone, we could solve a lot of things, but,
And I would be guessing that 30,000 is over multiple months and not just,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
or not
It's a budget.
1 month.
It's a budget
Yeah.
for the project.
Any other questions? I'm excited these things are moving forward, though. I think it's gonna do some really cool stuff on Main Street. I'm excited the Sweeney Building is,
So potentially, when do you think you'd have units in the bank building?
Well, that's all pending on approval of this funding. I would say within, I mean, it is ready to go. It just needs some funding to hire.
So this funding would complete that to livability.
Sir.
would hire the contractors, the materials have already been purchased, so. It's,
I know he worked.
and
on it
assuming
for
there's some
a long time.
contractors who need some work over the winter.
Be a great project.
They do it inside.
Okay.
Lee, you got anything?
No, I just was confused when I looked at this last page, but I think it was a,
Yeah, so I was
I
gonna
think
mention
that was a
that, so
typo.
when you, with these fillable documents, when I combined them,
yeah,
it takes whatever one is first, so the match funding page is incorrect. So
Yeah.
I had it pulled up here, the match funding is $75,000. $25,000 of that is a cash match from Cindy Flat, and 50,000 is a in-kind match from Bart Danielson.
okay.
So that their
For
match,
the work that he's already
yeah, their
done.
match funding is
And the
coming from the
materials.
building owners, which
Yeah.
I think is, which
It'll
we
be
as
for
the grant
existing
committee.
materials that he's getting.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
That was the only
And he's
question
already
I
paid
had,
for.
cause I was like, that's not matching up on this page.
Yes.
Just saying. So,
Okay, other questions? Would you guys, what are we feeling?
I move to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 cycle 3 capital investment grant awards as presented, and to authorize county judge to finalize and execute grant agreements reflecting the same.
Questions? One second. So we have 2,205,000,
That's- yes.
available in that.
Yeah, that's available right now before these would be approved. So after these would be approved, we'd have left enough.
I'll
That's,
second.
Okay,
I do have one question though, that I wanna that we wanted to ask Kaylin. Do you guys, are you going to be able to allow us to reimburse you for the funding, or do you need funding upfront for this project? Because that is a large chunk of money, and these capital investment grants are done on a reimbursement basis. So how does
We
that?
would need the money up front to be able to facilitate the project for these businesses.
So that is something,
you guys okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
I just wanted to make sure.
Should we go into, just for clarification, into a separate bank account, just like the grant account is managed? So that.
So the chamber's basically be the project manager through construction.
Yeah.
Then it's a handoff to the owner.
No, we would probably pay the contractors. Depending on, right, they would give us the invoice, we would just then write the check to the
So
contractor.
Paul, help me through this. So they- you get the money, you do the apartments. They're done and ready to move into. Who owns them?
They're owned by the building
But
owner,
no,
yes.
so it's just theirs in the end of the day. You're granting that back to them to do the work.
Yes, very similar to the way the Main Street grants are done. The chamber is the awardee. We then work with the building owner to manage the project. If they cannot pay the contractor, we're given the invoice and we pay the contractor. If it's done vice versa, but the checks go specific to the invoiced work, which it's a process. We'll use the exact same reporting process as the Oregon Main Street. So there's check-ins, there's before and after photos. There's that buy-in, right? Making sure that their cash match is being contributed. So if they're asking for $20,000 first payment, they'll have to provide cash match to that 20,000 as well.
Okay.
So we'll take a system that's already in place. We've been doing now for going on 3 years and
Good.
So my only concern would be as long as the owner of the building continues to rent to people after this is done and doesn't go, I don't wanna do this after we spend that money.
so like a 2 to 5 year commitment. What do you think we should?
5 years.
5 years, yeah.
Yeah, I think they should have
Almost all, I mean, even the stuff that the CDC is doing, under development's doing with their rental stuff is a 5-year commitment.
So you may want to look at, and maybe KCDC may have some legal documents that you can borrow.
Yeah.
To see, and maybe with each of those business owners, then the chamber is, basically writing a contract that's saying this is the expectation in exchange for these grant dollars that you're gonna be, providing rentals.
So we can guarantee that.
I don't know if Country Flowers, local, whatever is looking at apartments for anybody else.
Not sure
What was the question?
for the local, what Jeremy's
Oh,
plans
I'm
are.
not sure they're wanting to do something for,
Yes, they did reach out last week and say, how can we get in on this second story housing? I think that there
for
are,
rentals.
yes, I think so. There's just some other inner workings going on there. I felt like within our best interest in counties to get started on 2 projects that were really ready to go.
Yeah.
See how this really works, and then, we want these building owners to be part of the process. We want them asking for this type of assistance, not us going to them, because then it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So right now, we have 2 very encouraged, building owners that are ready to move. They just need a little support.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. It's that we're moving to approve the fiscal year 2023-2024 cycle 3 capital investment grant awards as presented, and to authorize the county judge to finalize and execute grant agreements reflecting the same. The consensus of the court was to allow the grant to the chamber to be an upfront payment rather than reimbursable. And that the chamber will also secure some legal contracts with those recipients to ensure that there's housing, that it achieves our purpose, basically, there's rentals. Is there further discussion on the motion?
That's the second.
I think you already did. So all those in favor?
I,
Aye, any opposed? Motion carries. And then Miranda, if you can make sure you capture in the minutes those 2 stipulations, and then we'll make sure we get those in the actual grant agreement. Thank you both, Steve and Kaylin, for bringing these great projects. It's exciting to see.
So left
moving
in the
forward.
capital investment grant now is $1.838 million left for the rest of this term. So we still have some more money in there for other projects.
And does that include 700 that we set aside?
Yes,
Does or doesn't?
it does, just because we have a placeholder on that amount just in
Got it.
case. So that
Okay.
amount,
it's gonna come off of the 1.8 or it's already off?
it's already off the 1.8.
Okay.
So there's 1.8, including that extra amount for the childcare. Just because I just wanted to act, not that we are going to give it, but just make sure we have it in there in case we need to make any consideration for it.
So that we don't double promise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Okay, let's move into announcements and next meeting. Next meeting is going to be September 20th. That will be in Arlington, the Gronquist Building. Also wanted to note, I think she has stepped out, but the city of Condon that afternoon is doing their first visioning meeting, sort of kickoff call. So originally we had tentatively thought we were gonna do the quarterly meeting with all of the taxing districts, but I think we're gonna postpone that and look for maybe an October date so we can support what the city is working on.
So, hold up.
Yes,
So, we're not doing the Mike McCarthy deal?
That's on the 27th.
that's on the
Oh, this
27th.
is the 20.
This is, we had talked during the last meeting about getting together our regular quarterly meeting that we've
For our
been doing.
quarterly,
Mhm. And it was, we were gonna, since the next one is supposed to be in Arlington, we were gonna just do it in the
Taxing
afternoon.
district, it threw me off, but it's
Sorry,
our entities that we're working with.
we got a lot of meetings going on. So we're gonna postpone that meeting so
Until,
that, we're looking at October dates right now. And so that we can participate in the city's visioning conversation.
Okay,
since we did inadvertently double booked that.
yeah, we need to get that on, put back together as quick as possible. We've been a while.
I emailed Jed this morning to send me some.
There's the
possible
other
dates.
participants are here.
Mhm. We'll get it rescheduled. Okay. Pat, what do you have going on?
Oh, there are some AOC committee meetings coming up this week and next. I'll try to get on those, and Korea canceled their meeting this week, but we're having a tour and stuff in Prineville on the 15th with probably a business meeting after that and the lunch, and then there's a lot of stuff coming up. I think we all know what that is coming up the rest of this month.
Mhm.
And I did meet with an industrial prospect on the other end of the county last week. Last week and or week before last, and I spent some time with Mayor Buffton. We talked about some of the development going on in Arlington, possible potential development in Arlington. Had a good talk last week. So,
Great. Leah, what about you?
So I went to the Capco meeting on the 25th. And they are looking at purchasing the East Oregonian building to house all of their needs. So they were looking at building a building and then found out that was gonna cost them about $20 million. So they went, that's not gonna work, so. And then that building, has come up for sale, so, they're looking at that, and then they would sell the buildings that they are in right now, and they would sell and get rid of it and help, so. It looks like it's probably gonna be a good fit for them. And I spent a fun-filled week at the Gilliam County Fair. And then pretty much lived up there for the 5 days. And for clarification, Greg Smith did not come to the fair, but his second was
Dawson.
there, Dawson, so he was at the fair.
Great.
And the public health update, I was gonna ask you guys, because when it was getting up and going last year, and they were reporting monthly to us, and things have kind of smoothed out, I was wondering if it was okay with the county judge and the other commissioner, if we went to more like a quarterly report, unless they're, something new or exciting, or something changes drastically.
I'm okay with that.
I do know that I think this weekend they're interviewing candidates for the new administrator job, so that's exciting. Hopefully they'll have somebody good they can bring on board. And other than
Lighten
that,
the load for you a little bit.
yes,
On the public health side.
but so that's, I think, just about it.
Okay, great. Let's see. Let me just double check. Late last week. Let's see. So the 911 board is gonna be meeting next Tuesday. It's our normal monthly meeting. Not a whole lot to report other than we continue to be in really crisis kind of level for dispatchers. So the board did authorize, apparently I did not know they did this, but there's a company similar to the traveling nurse kind of thing, but for dispatchers. And so the board authorized the director to move forward with engaging with that company so that we have some guaranteed staffing and can give our actual employees a little bit of a break, because they have literally been doing 12-hour shifts 7 days a week for, I think, since January. So we need to give them some breaks so we don't have people burning out and leaving, who are
Give them
otherwise.
time off the weekend.
Exactly. So we'll have some we'll basically have two, that are covering 24 hours and then an additional, one that can cover, 3-hour or 12-hour shifts, every day. So that should alleviate some of the concern and yeah, I mean, I was just, the other day, Sherman County had 2 trucks go into the river. And at the same time, there was a pretty significant crash that I ran into. I was not in the crash, but was in the traffic in Jefferson County at the same time. And our dispatchers would have been handling those 2 incidents simultaneously with probably 4 people who had been working 12-hour shifts. So it's a lot. They've been doing a lot to keep everyone safe. So that's the update. If you know of somebody who might be a good dispatcher or interested in that, please send them to Jessica, who's the director of Frontier 911, because it's a great career.
Well, and on a side note, when we, I forgot, we met with the OHA guy and he was talking about the 911 calls in Portland. And he said they're 6 to 8 minute waits when they call 911. So we're pretty fortunate when we call them and they pick up the phone.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. So you see one of them, thank them. They've been working long hours. I do not envy what they've been doing for the community. So the other thing is we had our Rocket 2.0 workshop and was well attended. I think just about everybody showed up for it. It was really a great discussion. We have some action items going forward on dialing in on the early educators pathway. So we're going to be working on doing some of that. Some of that is
so
county.
you had the people that attended the first one return.
Several of them, and then several new people
Okay.
too. So we had East Cascade Works was there, Columbia Gorge Community College was there. So we had some new members at the table too. And then our school district superintendents were there and engaged, and a bunch of other community partners. Waste Management was there. So one of the things, so we're going to be talking about cementing the pathway for workforce development a little bit more. There may be some county elements to that eventually I'll kind of bring forward. One of the ideas is talking about taking the OIC program and extending it into a year-round program and exploring with the state if there's some funding streams that we could do to help continue to place high school kids who are interested in that at both centers. There's high schoolers in Arlington and in Condon that have indicated they would like to continue into the school year and their schedule allows. So we're going to see if we can find some funding for that and figure out how to make that a year-round program. And then we're also digging in a little bit more on how we get employers involved. So there was some good conversation about that and some ideas that are coming out of that. One of the ideas that I wanted to start us discussing, I've raised this before during budget. It came up actually not from me, from another community member at the Rocket program, was an idea of creating a permanent endowment to support early education. And this with an eye toward at some point, the funding sources that we have been using to support both centers may not be there in the future. How do we be thoughtful now when we have an abundance of resources in investing them in ways that long-term, 100 years from now, they're thanking us for making a smart decision. So this is kind of a twofold thing. One of the suggestion that came up, it was from somebody who you know very well, Pat, was that we look at diverting some of the host fees into supporting a permanent endowment. And
When's the host fees agreement?
we'll have to pull it up.
I think it's 2 or 3 years out, but I
Yeah.
think there's several things we need to look at within the host fees agreement. It probably needs to be an addition.
So it could be an addition. In the interim, though, one of the things and I think we talked about this actually your first year, Pat, and we never circled back to it, was this idea that originally the host fees were meant for economic development. And I think something like 30-some% right now is going into Gilliam County's general fund to support our operations. I would like us to explore what it would look like to no longer do that, to live, to walk the walk at Gilliam County, live within our means in our general fund budget. That's gonna mean us probably next year looking at where do we come up with. I think it's about $500,000 that we're using of those host fees to do operations.
I
And
don't know, when you start looking at a shortfall of about $1 million in the road department, is that part of that's coming from SIP, so isn't it?
yeah, and that budget is outside of the general fund.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just talking from like the 101s,
Yeah.
basically. So road, weed, transportation, library, those are all outside of the general fund. So based on that, I think, I mean, Rachel could probably correct me if she had her budget in front of her, but I'm thinking it's a little over 1 million that comes in from the host fees. Our unappropriated balance right now is around 600,000-ish. So there's about 400,000 that we would have to find savings in the next budget in order to do it. I think we can, honestly, if you look, like there's a lot of fat in those budgets. We've got big travel budgets and things like that that a lot of people don't expend. So, but I think it would be a good exercise to see if we can live within our means. And so
We
my,
really need to look at the department reserves and
yeah. And so maybe the possibility then of taking what would have gone into the general fund and diverting it into something like an early education endowment for a period of time. And with the idea that a permanent endowment is exactly what it sounds like. It is permanent. So 100 years from now, there will be little kids going to early education centers supported by what we would invest this year and next year. And so it's just something, it came up. If this is something you would like to talk about more, I think the first step would be looking at the economic enhancement ordinance, which is what dictates where all the money goes currently.
yeah,
That can be revised by us at any point.
Yeah,
So
no, I've been with that one.
what I would propose is bringing it back, maybe even next meeting, just to look at it.
If I remember right, there's 300,000 in there for the sheriff's department.
There is. Yep, there's a percentage that goes to each of the cities. There is a percentage that supports the road department, percentage goes into the special projects grants that we award. What else? Money that goes into that is supporting the chamber small business grants that they're doing, like our capital projects. So there's some places where we're stashing some money that we actually don't need to. The capital projects one would be one that we could maybe rethink about where we're investing those dollars and maybe be a little bit more intentional about that.
Sounds like a project for Rachel right now.
Yep.
Cause their host fees are based on their, how much
Tonnage.
comes
Some
in.
volumes.
And they were telling us, and I forgot, I'm gonna have to go back to writing my list.
Okay.
That things I've done, but I attended the CAC meeting last night and they said they dumped 6,200 and some containers 1 month, so.
Yeah, so-
They have been very, very busy.
So we get a report every month on the amount of tonnage that's come in. It's a cents per ton that comes in. And then by ordinance, the court decides how that's divvied up.
They also got that Skagit County contract, which is another,
Yeah, 'cause that's one
almost like
we,
50
yeah.
cars a week.
okay, so.
And then there's a road fee contribution that is on top of the host fees, but that is negotiated with the host fee. So there's the portions. We have
Yeah.
elected to divert some of the host fee into the road department, but there's an additional fee that's coming in elsewhere as part of those agreements to help sustain.
Yeah, there
city
might
strengths.
be, I'd have to run the numbers, but figure out what 50 cars a week amounts to. There might be enough just in the Skagit County contract. And those fees.
The host fee agreements expire December 31st, 2025.
That one I
Couple
thought.
years. And then it looks like percentages, it's 6% to City of Condon and City of Arlington, 5% or 0.5% to City of Lone Rock, 23% to the general fund, 15.5% to the general road fund, 4% to capital projects. The law enforcement line item is 1%, and then homestead rebate, economic development, special projects, all of those. But those are the big ones on there, those ones.
Yeah, I've looked at that in depth.
So if you guys are amenable, I think what I would plan is for next meeting to bring the economic enhancement ordinance back just to look at it. There's a whole process. It has to be noticed if we're changing it, all that kind of stuff. So we won't be doing that, but I just want feedback on, should we reconfigure? Most of the ordinance has to do with the homestead rebate. And so I'll also ask Chet to just look at that and make sure there's nothing else that needs to be clarified on policy for him. But we did a pretty good scrub of it a couple of years ago. So I'm hopefully that's not, hopefully it's working for them. But then we can talk about the percentages and whether we want to redirect some of the stuff going into the general fund into some of these other priority projects we've identified.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Other than that, did I have anything else I was wanting to raise? I think that is it for this piece. Okay, so for folks watching at home, we are about to go into an executive session. We will not be making any decisions coming out of the executive session. The court has no further business after the executive session. So if you would like to step away, you are not going to miss anything. We are going to move actually into the jury room to hold the executive session. So you are welcome to stay in the courtroom. You don't have to, or you can also stay on the Zoom if you would like to watch us adjourn, but that's basically all we're going to be doing. So with that, I've got a script to read, which is the Gilliam County Court will now meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602G, which allows the court to meet in executive session to consider preliminary negotiations involving matters of trade or commerce in which the governing body is in competition with governing bodies in other states or nations. Designated staff will be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to remain in the public and virtual meeting room while the court reconvenes in a private meeting room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on or otherwise disclose any of the deliberations or anything said about these subjects during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. Again, we are not anticipating any decisions to be made coming out of executive session. At the end of the executive session, we'll return to the audience in the public virtual meeting room. Okay. All right, folks, it is 12:53. We are back in session and we don't have any other business, so we will adjourn the meeting.